you are looking in real time at the actual degradation and ripping apart of our civilization's backbone called infrastructure. It's not salvageable from this point forward, so deal with it. They're going to push the fear on purpose, and when you see that messaging through the media, and you see people getting scared, and you see those lines around the block at their bank trying to get into their ATM or whatever, that's your time to go, because there's no more time left at that point.
Welcome, Eagles, to another edition of Trad Cat Night, special guest exclusive podcast right here on the tradcatnight.org website. Folks, today is 8/20/2024. I hope you all are having a very wonderful and blessed day. We're keeping the shows moving along. One of my favorite to do every month is with David Dubai and Adapt 2030. Make sure you get on over to YouTube, subscribe, where he's breaking it down on all levels, folks. Stay plugged into David's work. So we'll talk a little economics. We'll talk what's happening there in Tennessee, all the flooding happening worldwide, celestial signs, 6 days to safety. And I believe right off the bat, he wants to get into talking about how our modern infrastructure is just currently not handling and is currently not going to continually to handle what Mother Nature is throwing at us. But go ahead, David, take it over, and welcome back to the show.
Appreciate you having me back. Times are a-changing, as we can see. Like just even this morning, I was going to read you a message somebody sent me. A guy who's I won't even say what he does for a living, but he writes me and says, you have a generator, please start it in case you need it in September. And I'm like, well, you know, these are kind of just random oddball messages that I'm getting. And another guy who's a radio operator, Ham, he tells me meteorologist Bill Ray's posted something that looks out of this world, and these what is considered like smoke rings / fire rings in the sky. And this is interesting because this is the one coming out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. They have two visual images of it. It was occurred at sunset. There's been some storms lately right around, and then it clears at sunset. But the rings, like you see smoke rings coming out of volcanoes sometimes. But these were rings that were coming out of obviously the Smoky Mountains after a storm front, and then they were round. But that is his second instance of it. That's a third round ring that I've seen, because there was another one a little bit closer to where we live, up toward Gatlinburg. And another, same thing. It had this round, perfectly round shape as if it was a smoke ring that popped out and puffed out. But it looked like it had some vortice with it, and it wasn't just a cloud. It looked like it was wrapping around something, and I was making the strange statement. I was wondering, is that a disguised craft up there that's showing some sort of, toroid vortex with it that the cloud's wrapping around on an energy force? Because what's strange is we're seeing two instances in two different places within 2 days of these rings appearing over the mountains here in Tennessee. Strange. We got massive floods across the planet. We got raging volcanoes across the planet. And recently there's telephone pole deep floods in China and the North Korean border. Plus you saw those glacial lakes break apart in Nepal. Villages just get wiped away. I'm telling you, it's everywhere. And this whole October 2024 event, I believe, has some fingerprint inside this. And if you knew this and you had a lot of information that wasn't available to the public, you would just let nature take its course, knowing that you couldn't salvage the more developed nation's infrastructure. It would be too costly. You're talking trillions and trillions of dollars to repair it. Just let it get broken. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out later, come around 2030 something, 2032, when this cycle rolls through itself. Let's put the gold on the lifeboat, and we'll get it over to areas that seemingly through these last cycles were known as areas that weren't going to be as heavily affected, i.e. the Sahel, the BRICS nations, under the guise of BRICS nations. But I am sure there are targeted select locations that over the last 5 or 6 of these cycles were well known of the safety points. Now, is it a 400-year cycle or is it a once in a 2,000-year cycle? Not sure. Bad news is bad news. Bank of America clients sold $7 billion in stocks, the largest amount since 2020. And rate cuts should scare you. JP Morgan and Citigroup now forecast 2 supersized Fed cuts this year. The stock market crashed in 2000 and 2007 after the first rate cut. In 2007, gold went up over 200%, more than doubling. Silver tripling. Because gold is security in times of uncertainty and should remain a core asset ahead of the U.S. election. Call the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. And Patriot Gold Group has an OP for Life IRA, where your IRA or 401k could be in physical gold or silver. No fee for life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Give them a call, 888-546-7020. And now Patriot Gold Group, for the 7th year in a row, Consumer Affairs top-rated IRA gold dealer. Give them a call, 888-546-7020. And now on with the video. But that's where I'd like to preface the show, because you are looking in real time at the actual degradation and ripping apart of our civilization's backbone called infrastructure. It's not salvageable from this point forward, so deal with it.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Got to check those generators. I try to do it once a month. Also, your eco flows, I have to run through every 2 to 3 months to make sure those are working properly too as well. We'll see what the power outage, situation is going to be like in the upcoming months. I was curious to know your thoughts about that article that came out about this widespread hacking event with social security numbers, because we know we're going to be dealing with the whole hackathon, I call it. Of course, eventually we know it'll hit the grid and probably bring everything down. Just wanted your thoughts.
So if all of our social security numbers are compromised, of course we're going to have to move to a new digital ID to verify identity. Would we not? Are you kidding me? You can see it plain as day. And then also, with these price controls that are being spoken about, if it comes to such a thing, price controls will come into play. But then at the same time, as I was saying, you're going to need a digital rationing card, and you're also going to need biometric identification for that ration card to be functional. And then the third layer on the nasty cake would be that they want to implement CBDCs so you could pay with government-issued new money with your biometric ID, with your digital ID, to get in to purchase food. And I might say one last point with that. I live in this small town. There's a little over 1,000 people here. And if you drive about 30 minutes, you come to a Walmart near us. And I remember during the height of the COVID, they had 19 pickup lanes. And the last time we went there, they have installed 50 brand new pickup lanes. So I was talking with the guys when they were out there, they were painting some lines, and obviously they were employees and they were checking the signs were all right. I said, why do y'all need 50? Are you planning to not let people in the store and everything's going to be ordered online? And they're like, no, it would never go that far in Tennessee. I said, well, why are you putting up 50 of these lines when total COVID max was only 19 of your previous parking spots? They were numbered. That's how I knew 19, because I was checking this before they tore the old signs down. Very strange, to say the least. So you start to add all these things up where you're going, all right, maybe something new coming in, they'll close every store. Well, everything will be online ordering. And then they could say, nope, we're out of this. No, we're just going to give you this. You're going to get what you get. Don't complain. If you complain, you'll be cut off. You'll be seen as an irritant or some sort of disturber, and you'll have a moniker associated to you with that. The Social Security is going to bring in a digital ID to verify identity. That'll be a new digital ID with biometrics that's associated, and then that connects with your CBDC account from your FedNow wallet that everybody in America has. If you didn't know that, you have a FedNow wallet associated. If you have a Social Security number, you got a FedNow account with that. So you can't tell me that every Social Security number in America has been hacked, yet the Fed put out and has everybody's FedNow account wallet tied to that same Social Security number moving forward with CBDCs. Now, you're telling me that that's not related at all? That they wouldn't be concerned? Wait, we just set up this brand new system to give everybody central bank digital currencies associated with tagged to your Social Security number, but just every Social Security number just got hacked. Like, wait a second. So I'm missing something here. Maybe I'm not seeing the whole puzzle. Because a lot of times when you think you know, you don't know. Because I'm missing something for sure.
Get on over to Adapt 2030. How the show's been going. I'm curious about if you learned anything with Annette there. 6 days to safety. What'd you guys talk about there? What's the latest on the economic side?
So I've been doing these extreme weather videos because it's so mind-boggling how intense the extremes are getting. And I mean, telephone pole deep floods, right? So I started to wrap up a few of these last couple of videos of just extreme weather events across the planet, from the volcanoes to the floods to the winds to the dust storms. There's all kind of earth cracks. But with me and Lynette, we were talking about that. Main takeaway with her is two things. Once you know that the public is panicking, which will be pushed by the media, then you have about 6 days to get to where you need to go. maximum. What we're talking about is how the media is either pushing fear and stirring up your emotions of losing your money, or not, pushing that the banks are going to close and bail in your money, or not. And as soon as everything rolls over this certain, waterfall crescendo point where the news is pushing fear, the banks are starting to bail in, banks are closing, failures, FDIC is getting involved, and they're really pushing the fear on that. When then the panic, then the public spooks, like a herd of animals, they spook. Once they spook, that is the trigger point where she's like, at that point, it's really over. The system that we knew is gone. It's imploding on purpose. They're going to push the fear on purpose. And when you see that messaging through the media, and you see people getting scared, and you see those lines around the block at their bank trying to get into their ATM or whatever, that's your time to go, because there's no more time left at that point. And it was really quite the fascinating conversation, going back all the way to the Roman era, and these different rises and falls of civilization, how serfdom evolved in, say, circa 1200, and then broke out of that. And then I came back to the point where, all right, well, if this is truly the world we're seeing bringing us back to serfdom as a form of governance globally, it won't happen tomorrow. It's going to take, a decade or so, maybe a little more, to get us into that sort of serf mind frame. And then I was like, Lynette, maybe that is like a 700-year cycle or an 800-year cycle in itself. Maybe that's the whole rise and fall, and we've gone through this multiple times, because you got to look at our post-Younger Dryas exit. Younger Dryas happens, cometary impact on the ice sheet, and then 12,000, say 500 years ago, society, whatever was around at that point, and many say advanced, very highly technological society existed then, but was wiped back to literally just millions of breeding humans left on the planet. And we've come forward from that point, and the first grand, say, civilization started to appear around 8,500 years prior from today, going back in time. And subsequently, when you're looking at these ebbs and flows, it always occurs on around an 800-year cycle, which was interesting for me because that's two grand solar minimum 400-year cycles. But in terms of the way the economy is structured, restructured, not on a single continent or a single nation basis, but on an entire planetary basis. You got to jump way outside these borders on how, something hyperinflated in Weimar, Germany, or something inflated over here, and Hungary, Austria, and, Ottoman Empire did this or that, and going further back. It is a full system reset of governance on the planet. And we were talking about how maybe this card has been played multiple times. Serfdom, they bring you up to a certain level again, they crash it, it comes back to serfdom. But each time is to extract something out, and we couldn't really define it. Like how much gold you can mine? Yeah, okay, that's great. How much the value of real estate? Whatever. How much money you can print? Okay. But it really comes down to sort of a magnetic field state that other entities are allowed to exist within it to harvest something. And I was like, they're harvesting energy off of humanity in certain magnetic field states that are only prevalent in certain times on these cycles. And this is what our conversation was about. So if you want to see how economy, spirituality, magnetic field vibration, and our modern world intersect over the last 8,000 years, that interview series is for you. We just even talked about the very simplest, if you want to bring it to the simple, like just basicest, if that's a word, solar cycle maximums, like solar maximums, that usually coincides with stock market tops. And solar minimum on the 11-year, we're talking on the 11-year solar cycle, generally coincides with market bottoms globally across all markets, all stock markets, etc. So if we're looking at energetic changes on an 11-year solar cycle that also influence how human behavior sees possibilities for growth on that, and these ebbs and flows of energy just on an 11-year solar cycle, affecting something that we can pinpoint on our stock markets on the exuberance of growth or decline. Then there's got to be something. What happens if we come into a 400-year or a 2,000-year cycle and change in energies in magnetic field? Do you think that would start to spin our world out of kilter, of the present world, I should say? Of course it would. I don't even need to answer that.
Now, since the last time we talked, you had, what was it, like a 7 point something there over in Japan. You had this 7.2 the other day here in Russia, which I don't think had a tsunami, but I think another volcano popped off there. West Coast, there's been like a couple 5.5 out in the Southern California area, so there's talk of megaquake there. Megaquakes really everywhere now. Japan, I think they're even telling their own people to get prepared for one. What's with all the recent talk of megaquakes here lately across a bunch of different continents?
Yeah, so I pulled up the USGS significant earthquakes over 4 point. If you look back on August 16th, there was a 6.1 in Hualien, that's in Taiwan. Let me see, there was in Dolinsk, Russia. Well, that's kind of getting out toward the Kamchatka Peninsula, 6.5. In Dolinsk, Russia, they had three 6.8s and a 6.5, and that was on August 9th. Okay, and then it jumps a week. But here's what's interesting. When you're talking about that quake, that wasn't just one. And Petropavlovsk, and that was in Kamchatka, Russia, and where the peninsula is there, that was the Shiveluch volcano going and erupting on I wouldn't say super volcano level, but they had 7.4, 7.4, 7.0 in the same day. So something significant with the volcanic eruptions. And if you were to look at your solar system geometry where our orbits are, we're starting to get tugged by Jupiter's magnetic field on the cross and also Saturn's magnetic field. So we're coming into a doubling wave on that. Plus we just had the sturgeon moon, a combination of a supermoon and a blue moon. It only happens once every 15 years. It's 90% as close as it can possibly be to the Earth on a full moon. You know, you got the gravity and you got the electromagnetism, and then we got the planets lining up in a square that hasn't been seen in 2,000 years. We got a sturgeon moon. So I bet the tides are just going absolutely bonkers across the planet. As you and I spoke about that last year and coming up to now. You should see the amount of just insane tidal videos coming out as well. If anybody would like to, I'm not saying go watch my video, but I'm saying take a look at that. Telephone pole deep floods, that the tides are catching fishermen, lifelong multi-generational fishermen off guard on how ferocious these tides are coming in and how fast they're coming in. And even Cliff, I was talking about it out in Washington. It seems to be more northerly latitudes right now, but I assure you this is going to be a global event.
Well, yeah, you had called Hurricane Debbie or whatnot, put Sarasota, Florida, and some other eastern cities underwater too. I mean, I was like to the top of the cars as well. So, yeah, man, just like you said, it looks like we're getting closer to that October date. You got any update to that? Are you still going to cling to October really being pretty spicy on the coastlines?
I would absolutely say that the tides are going to increase in height and ferocity. I mean, some of these videos I was watching are just frightening is an understatement on how fast the water had moved in, how fast it inundated their boats where they couldn't even get their boats off the shores or out of the way. And these, like I say, are lifelong fishermen. And when I see things like this, different types of water spout events all through Adriatic Sea out into the Mediterranean, there's just an enormous amount of coastal anomalies happening right now. And those same kind of weird flood events coming in Corsica and a few other places down along the western part of Italy and the west coast of Italy there. So it's happening in smaller seawater bodies, but it's also happening in larger seas as well, Pacific, Atlantic. Down around Antarctica, New Zealand, and Australia are seeing just some bizarre... They're seeing like cross currents. You know, if you look down a highway, you can see traffic going in one direction as you're driving, and then, you know, if you're looking, the cars are coming in the opposite direction, obviously split by a median of grass. But they're seeing the same thing out in the ocean now of currents going in different directions, almost as if they're lines in the ocean moving in different directions. And we sit at this juncture right here where I'm just waiting for the moment that the entire planet wakes up and go, whoa, something's very, very wrong. And you guys didn't tell us about this? Like, what? You can't deny it any longer. That's the whole thing. It's like, when is the global awareness going to snap in place?
But I did want to ask you about that new Madrid exercise, that exercise where they were practicing for an 8.4 megaquake. What was it, St. Louis, Missouri? That was interesting over the last month or two.
Yeah, and you know, everybody listening out there, we're just kind of pointing out the problems. It's not about to put fear and doom and gloom. I'm having a picnic tomorrow because you really need to still continue to live your life as these things are transitioning. You have to realize that through history, we've been nothing but this, but we've just had more connectivity now so you can see more events. But through almost all of human history has just been one transition point to another, to another, to another. We've luckily had some of the most stable climate in the last 200 years that we've had in the last 12,000. But aside from that, history is just a hodgepodge of crumbling societies, re-evolving, civilizations coming back, monetary systems, rulership, overseership of how farm earth should be handled. And it's just been that constant for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It just seems we're more connected to it now because there's just more connectivity and communication. So if we didn't have all the newspaper and internet and everything, and Eric and I weren't having this conversation, you probably wouldn't know most of the stuff's going on around you. You cannot get frozen by this fear. Just use it as a marker to verify that different events are in play. And if you have a plan, to try to implement those plans without the fear. Just look at it as you're going on a hike and you're reading a map, and then you go, oh, at this juncture right here, it says we need to go to the right here for another 2 miles. And then when we're this cross junction and you see the river or the stream right there, that we need to go down the stream, over the bridge, and then up the side, and then turn left. These are markers in time, points of verification and validation that these things are in play. You can't be paralyzed by it. You shouldn't be. You should actually be relishing and enjoying that you're kind of out in front of it, seeing it, and you're not being afraid of it. But how do you position yourself to be able to take advantage of these types of things? A, to help yourself, your families, but also to benefit your communities if you can in any way, shape, or form. What we're experiencing right now is nothing new in history. It's truly not. It's just another chapter of it. There's more people on the planet now. It's just easier to see all these connecting dots.
You got any projects you're working on for this going into fall time? I know you last time we talked, it seemed like you got all kinds of stuff happening. What you got working on now?
Finishing up the decks, or I should say, flat decks up where we're putting large yurts on the property. Being able to get some 300-gallon septic systems up in there, getting water catchment coming off the waterfall to do just for basic toilet, this sort of thing, and getting the backfield in. We're in the middle of trying to harvest all the pears, get the orchard trimmed out. We got a few chicken coops to build up. We're trying to harden everything for winter, and then slap some trim on the barn. I got a huge pipe in the back that part of the road collapsed over these floods, and we got to build a little rock wall, push the pipe back up, fill it in with concrete, and make sure it doesn't slag back down again, and add in some gravel. Other than that, I'm going to be chilling.
Yeah, well, I'm going back to basics, going back to the water, get back to the food, make sure the rotation is good there.
Yeah, tell me more, because I'm really not following that stuff, Eric. I'm just trying to keep my head down. I got my new podcast we rebranded Civilization Cycle. Trying to work on that. I got my farm I'm working with, and I'm just focused really on these extreme weather events and magnetic field anomalies, so I'm not even focused really over there. So what are you seeing for October surprises?
Like I said, I've been telling my folks, get what you can get while you can get it, but then also, like, where you plan on staying indefinitely, because once they go with these lockdowns, it's going to be indefinite. I don't know, man. It's all kind of coming together, but I don't know if it was another size class the latest solar flare was, but they're now talking we could start seeing some more unusual auroras again, maybe even red ones, which could tie into Catholic prophecy here, because it's in some Catholic prophecy when you see red auroras, basically the worst of World War III would occur. But I don't know if you have anything to add with that.
No, nothing. You can go to spaceweatherlive.com and check out all the information that you're looking at. And that was an X 1.1. And that was the latest X 1.1 that arrived here. If you were feeling kind of skittish yesterday on the 17th, 18th, somewhere around there, some residual energies. If you're feeling a little bit weird over the last few days, that was because we did get hit with a direct blast. It was Earth-centered, Earth-directed. And we did see, and I did, there's an enormous amount of aurora pictures around the world. But here, strangely, they're starting to see orange auroras as a common thing. Like, orange is not a normal color. They used to be very, very, very rare. People even said, no, they're never orange. Never. And then last year I started to see a couple, like when the first ones come out, they were just mind blown. Like, wow, look how vivid the orange is. You can't even believe we got orange ones. Finally, we got it on it used to be like a mythical legend or something. And they finally got some really high quality photos of the orange ones. And get this, that night, or the 2 nights that those X-flare came in, they had orange everywhere across the planet that were routinely photographed. So something that was strange, which requires a higher electrical field to create that phenomena of the ions crashing together to create that orange effect, was rare. Now it has become common. So if you're looking at an input into the system, something's definitely changed. And see, now, if you're looking at electrical frequency and electrical field changes, you're going to be looking at Earth's magnetic field declining. You're going to be looking at higher electrical input into the system. And that's just the coloration that you're seeing in the aurora. But imagine that same set of circumstances that's non-visible to the human eye because you can't see a magnetic field wafting in front of you, but it would definitely be tweaking our jet streams, cloud cells, tides, and everything else that you see as these massive Earth changes. So I really believe they're all tied together. And we're coming so precariously close to the point where the media cannot hold back the tidal wave of people seeing it with their own eyes. And Eric, one last thing here. I had written this note just before I started the show. There's suddenly this phenomenon of people coming out in a lot of different YouTube shorts or kind of TikTok shorts or whatever shorts that they do, talking about how the sun is now white. That everybody talks about, when I was a kid, it was yellow and now it's white. So generally it's older people. One thing I noticed, they're always over 50 because they remember the yellow sun. But there's this phenomenon in the last 2 weeks. There's been like this giant tidal wave of people coming out going, I don't remember the sun being that white, and it's scalding me when I go out in the sun. It's comfortable in the shade, but the minute you step out, it's like you're in a microwave. But what is it with this sudden awareness of the sun becoming bright white and very hot? That's the question too.